I'm Matt with etrailer. If you have a 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander and you're looking for a rack that can handle those pretty heavy e-bikes, but you want an easier installation or at least loading them on and off of your rack, then the Yakima OnRamp LX Bike Rack is going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. What's also great about this is that we're going to have that ramp that comes with this kit actually incorporated into the design of the carrier. So you don't have to store it in your vehicle if you already have a lot of luggage back there. And what's also nice is we're going to have that 80-pound weight capacity per bike, so e-bikes will be a great option for this. And that's really not going to reflect the tilt away too much. Now, tilting it away is a little bit difficult. So what we're going to be doing is just coming to the front of it, and you're going to have two pins. So you're going to have this one that's mainly supporting it, which is going to be this pin next to us, but we're going to pull out this metal pin with this ball in it. Sometimes you might have to lift up a bit and wiggle it some. And that's why I say this one is a little bit tricky to work with sometimes. There it is. And then this one is the easy one. We're just going to be lifting up on the rack a bit, pulling that out, and letting it fall towards us. You can see this is pretty far back. We're almost making contact with the ground. If you're on an uneven terrain, you might make contact with the ground. Just keep that in mind. And those will give me enough room to really open this up. So if I need to put away any groceries, I'll have that ability. And you'll notice we don't have a lot of space back here anyways. So those other carriers that have ramps included, it might be difficult to store one of those back here. What's going to be more ideal is just putting any of your gear for your riding. So if you need to grab your helmet, your shoes, you can do that right now. But when you're done, you can just stand up and close this back up and put this back into the seated position. This process I find to be a lot easier just by pushing on it until you hear it click into place, and then just make sure you put that metal pin back in. And if we want to take a closer look at this rack, I want to take off my bike. Where I like to start is with these straps. So you're going to have one per tire. You can start with either one. You're just going to press on this gray tab and push this out. And the way I like to do it is also to just tuck this away somewhere. We actually have these points designed for these to sit in, so they're not in your way when you wheel this off. Again, repeating that on the on the front side. This doesn't take too long. And before I fully remove my bike, I'm actually going to take off my ramp. And to do that, we're just going to come over to the center, undo this knob. We're going to maintain control of this, or we're not going to lose it at least, and remove this ramp. And what we're doing here is really just taking off another knob on the back side of it. You notice we have two bolts here, and what we're doing is making sure we can remove this and line up those bolts with these two holes on the bottom. This can be a little bit awkward sometimes, especially if you haven't handled this in a while. There we go. And then we're going to grab those knobs again and secure them back on the back of this ramp. So this can be a little bit tedious every time you're going out to ride, but every now and then it's not too bad. And with this all put together, we can secure it either to the front or back of our tire, whatever's going to be the better situation for you. And to do that, we're going to have two knobs or prongs at the front of it. They're going to go into this hole right here on the tray. The best way to do this is to kind of put it in at an angle. You kind of feel it seat into place, and then you can lower this down. And now we can actually remove this center mass clamp, and basically it's just holding on through this strap here. And also maintain control of your bike so it doesn't fall off and hit your vehicle. And you can do this a few ways. You could try putting the center mass down. I think it's really going to come down to the placement of your pedals compared to where this mass is. If you're behind the mass, then I think you can take off your bike. Now the best way is just to move that clamp out of our way, and then we can push this off. If you do it this way, you really won't come into any contact with anything. Now if that center mass is actually behind your pedals, then you might have to put it down first. But you can see this is a pretty easy process. And we can start putting everything back up. So this is just going to help keep things nice and tidy. And I also like to just rearrange how everything's positioned, because if this is facing forward, that could make contact with our vehicle. And I'll show you a little bit more later on. We'll have another pin down here that I'll pull and push this into place. Now sometimes this hook can get caught, and we can start putting up our ramp. And again, this can be a little bit of a process because we do have all these knobs on the back side of this, which can be a little bit tedious. And if you don't want to deal with something like that, because maybe you're out riding a lot more often, then I'd recommend something like the Rocky Mountains Gigawatts Bike Rack. The reason why I recommend that one is because that's going to have a ramp. It's not integrated into the design of the carrier, but it's just going to be all one piece, so you don't have to put everything together like I'm doing right now. As you can actually see, I actually got it in the back of our hatch area. Pretty easy. This is what the ramp for that one's going to look like. Really easy installation. All you have to do is put it on the very end of your tray, and then you're ready to go. But again, you need to make sure you do have the space to store that ramp. Now we can focus on how this is going to interact with the Outlander. So the first measurement I like to get is going to be the ground clearance. So this is going to be sitting at 16.5 inches, which is actually pretty good. So even when you have those heavier e-bikes back here, this might drop down by an inch or two. You'll still have plenty of clearance of not making ground contact. Now for how far away it's going to sit out from this position, from our back bumper to the back of the carrier, that's only going to be 26 inches. So that's pretty compact for a 2-bike carrier. Now you might run into some issues like you saw earlier. This center mass can get in your way just because this is a tight fit. But if you can learn to really work around those situations, this would be pretty nice. Now you can save more space, and all we have to do is pull these 2 pins back here. Now something to keep in mind is this rack is going to sit very close to your Outlander, and you might even make some contact. But we're going to pull those 2 same pins and push up now. We're going to push up until this clicks into place, just like that. And pulling these straps is going to help you some too, but you can see right here at this knob, I think we're just barely making contact. Not enough to really damage it as is right now, but if you're driving around somewhere, if this is moving around some, this could scratch up your vehicle. So you have 2 options. You could either just leave it down and not fold up, or you could put some type of buffer in between your carrier and your vehicle. If you're going to go that route, then this is only going to stick out just about 8 inches from the carrier itself, but it also will depend on how you position these other knobs. And the way it's going to interact with the back of our Outlander, we're not going to block too much really. Now this is going to really hang over some of your license plate, but it mostly will be visible. We're not going to block your backup camera either. I'll probably pick up a little bit of this, but it won't prevent you from using it. And your taillights and back window won't be obstructed. And the way it's going to install is we're going to have this 2-inch shank that goes into your 2-inch hitch receiver. Then we'll have an anti-rattle bolt that goes through and connects to a lock core on the other side. The anti-rattle bolt is just going to give you a better hold on this, so it's not rattling around in your receiver, and that lock core is just going to give you more security so no one can take your rack. In my opinion, I think this is a pretty solid, okay option, and it's really just going to come down to how often you're riding and how much space you have in the back of your Outlander. If it's pretty jam-packed back here, then this is going to be the better option because you're going to be able to mount that ramp to the carrier itself. Now, if you're going out riding a bunch and you got a little bit more space in the back, then I would recommend the Rocky Mountains Gigawatts Bike Rack. Reason being because if you have to put together that ramp every time you go out riding, especially if you're doing this on a daily basis, that's not going to be the most fun, and it's going to really slow you down a bit too. But if you're also looking for something that's just going to be able to be really easy to work with and easy to store in your garage, this is pretty easy to do that, but I think the Thule Epos Bike Rack is going to be a little bit easier because that's going to have wheels so you can move it around, and it's not going to weigh very much, and it can still handle those pretty heavy e-bikes. But again, it's just going to depend mainly on your space and how often you're riding. But again, this is just a look at the Yakima OnRamp LX Bike Rack on the back of our 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.